Hey, good Monday, everybody. Great to see you. Got an update for you on what's shaping up to be a train of winter storms throughout the month of February, each one tracking further and further south, and we could get folks pretty far south into major winter storm territory before the month is over. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell for the latest notifications, and go ahead, comment, let me know where you're watching from as we break down this very active pattern. That'll really help me kind of gauge where my audience is and gear the video towards those folks. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and dive right on into the data because a lot to discuss today. And kind of what you see looping next to me, this is the latest run of our European computer model showing that setup very well, I think. It's just kind of storm after storm after storm, one, two, probably three or so within the next 10 days. And then after that, we could see even more winter storms through the month of February. So the past couple Februaries have been relatively quiet in the east. I think this year we're finally going to flip the script back to kind of what February used to be, if you will, and increase the chance of more of a kind of wintry month compared to what has felt like more of a spring month as of late. With that said, though, if you are deep in the south, we are going to see some full-blown spring fever over the next week or so. But again, that cold air is slowly going to ooze southward, and as it does so, going to increase those winter storm chances further in that direction as well. Now, taking a look at satellite imagery this morning, no major storms currently on the satellite loop, but what I want you to kind of just notice here is this very strong flow out of the Pacific that's really just crossing much of the country in general from the west coast into the east coast. You can see that green and that blue indicating some cooler cloud tops. Now, we're not seeing those more red and orange colors, indicating to me, again, that we don't have any sort of major storm producing a massive amount of lift right now, but nonetheless, this kind of very zonal flow going to still track a couple storm systems, including a little bit of a clipper ongoing right now, and I think you can see that pretty well on our radar imagery here, taking a look at it. Again, everything to the north. To the south here, we've kind of got a little bit of a ridge in place that is kind of flexing northward and really bringing that storm track further to the north. So because of it, again, I'll kind of draw where the current storm track is. It's something a little bit more like this. That's why we're getting that snow up towards the Canadian border, into the Pacific Northwest, and eventually up into the Northeast into this evening. And then to the south, it's just beautiful spring-like weather for many folks. Here, really from the Carolinas all the way to Southern California, and more of that dome of heat. Again, it's February, so it's not going to be, hot by any means, but we'll definitely start to feel a lot more like spring compared to winter time, at least for now. Again, do not get overly excited if you're a fan of spring-like weather. This is kind of what we call fake spring. I'm sure many of you are kind of familiar with this. This happens most years where we kind of get a period during the second half of winter or so that starts to feel like spring, and you get your hopes up and you want to go outside and start planting. Or planting rather, and it's just a little too early for that, and you'll see why here as we go through today's video. Now, as you saw on radar, we've got a pretty good amount of snow up to the north, and we've got a nice little clipper working on through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan this morning. This is about what radar looks like at the time that I'm recording this, but as we go through this afternoon and into the later morning hours even, this will slowly work east, and we're going to get some snow into northern Michigan. Northern Wisconsin will continue to see snow. If you're watching this, it's probably already snowing there, or maybe even done, depending on the time that you are watching this. But we move it further ahead into time, into this afternoon and evening, and that snow slowly works eastbound, getting into portions of Ontario, Quebec, probably into the Toronto area, and then eventually we get through this evening and some of that snow working into New England. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a further north track, so we had some snow, I think last night it was, in New York City, Boston, Connecticut. Let me know how much you got. This storm going to be a little bit further north, so do not expect snow in those same places, but we could still get, a nice quick couple of inches into Maine, the mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, specifically the northern half of these states up near the Adirondacks of New York State. And then again, I think the down east areas of Maine going to deal with some mixing issues. Same story for southern Vermont, New Hampshire. Might not even rain as far south as Boston. But just a nice little quick hitting clipper during the overnight tonight. Then we're waking up tomorrow on Tuesday and we're going to get a little bit of a lull throughout the day Tuesday. Then that first major storm system comes in by Wednesday into Thursday, and that'll be kind of one of the big topics in today's video. Now, before we get there, though, again, this system going to bring some snow, a nice little swath of 3 to 5 inches here into the northern thumb of Michigan, into northern Wisconsin there, and some of this has already fallen probably, but storm total accumulation is this. So if you've already gotten 2 inches, you've got probably about another 2 or so to go before all is said and done up into this region. Nothing for Detroit, nothing for Chicago out of this storm. Same thing probably down here near Milwaukee. Not really much coming from this one, but the next storm could be a different story. Now, moving it on into the northeast out of this Clipper system, National Weather Service actually going pretty bullish here on their totals up into Maine. They're going with places near about 5 or 6 inches, and some of this might be left over from last night's Clipper. This was from 1 a.m. this morning, so if you got snow between 1 a.m. and now, subtract that from these totals. But overall, I think most folks, this is going to be kind of a 2 to 4 inch event up in the northern tier here of New England. Not really much expected for the Boston area, definitely not for New York City, and surely not for the Philadelphia area. But you start going north towards Maine, higher chance of seeing some light accumulations and then maybe even moderate accumulations in the higher elevations of the interior northeast. Now, that's the current storm. Let's talk about out west a little bit too. I don't want to, skip you folks because you've got it good too here with this very wintry pattern. It's kind of that classic La Nina, the negative PNA setup that we often see. And basically what that does here globally speaking is just moves the jet stream in an orientation that really just likes to throw storm systems into the Pacific Northwest and cold Canadian air. And obviously you get those two together, yeah, you're going to get some snow. And that's exactly what's happening out here. We've had plenty of Rocky Mountain snow in the Cascades. Now the Sierra Nevada is starting to get in on the fun. You can see this is this afternoon, and we'll keep on going ahead into time. And folks, it's more of the same. Overnight tonight, this is tomorrow morning. It's still snowing, raining at the coast, but mainly snowing for most folks here into the northern Rockies, and it just keeps on snowing. The Sierra Nevada is going to get absolutely pummeled with heavy snow by tomorrow afternoon. We'll keep on going. This is into Wednesday morning. And then, it just keeps on coming. So definitely a snowy pattern out here, and you can see that pretty well if we take a look at the kind of snowfall forecast from our blend of models. This is over the next 3 days or so, and you can kind of see the biggest winter is going to be down here into the Sierra Nevadas and then up into the northern Rockies, and still plenty of snow to come into the Pacific Northwest here. So definitely a snowy pattern. I've been saying this. If you had a ski trip planned out this way anytime in this ballpark, yeah, you definitely lucked out and are going to run into a very favorable pattern for some snow. Now, let's go ahead and dive into kind of the more, I won't say important topics because everything's important, but the bigger storm system for areas into the east. Now, it's going to be really, I see around 3 storms or so within the next 10 days. We're going to get one starting really tomorrow into Thursday, then another on Saturday, and then a third right around that 8, 9, 10 day time frame. And that one could be very interesting as well. So the overall setup here, again, you're thinking, all right, well, we've got this big ridge of high pressure you're telling me about. Isn't that going to prevent the snow? Well, for some folks, yes. Other folks, not so much. And in fact, I think ice will be a pretty big concern here as well as we kind of go through this setup. We've got this classic overrunning pattern. If you don't know what that is, I'll kind of show you right here. So I'll move it ahead. This is Wednesday afternoon. We've got this big ridge here, but at the same time, we've got a piece of energy kind of rotating along that ridge. You can kind of see this area of highlighted higher vorticity or higher storm energy. That combined with very cold air up into Canada, I'll just go ahead and draw the word cold here. This is oozing south at the surface. So what's happening is cold air is a lot more dense than warm air. So this is very dense, it's shallow, it's kind of slowly working southward. And at the same time, we've got this big ridge of warm air, and that's kind of more in the mid-levels than the surface. So that warm air is moving over that cold air, and what that's creating is one, if I don't smack my microphone, sorry, one, that creates a lift, and two, that creates kind of a temperature gradient where it might be raining above you, but then it gets to the surface, and that could change to freezing rain or maybe even sleet or some sort of ice. So I think ice is going to be a pretty big concern here, right where the two interact. Now, if you're up here north of the ridge, this will be all snow. You're going to have enough cold air through all layers of the atmosphere that you're not going to have to worry about that problem. And this is just the first storm. Again, you can kind of see it right here. That crosses on through Wednesday into Thursday, and then you can kind of see a secondary piece of energy by Friday. And that secondary piece of energy, that's going to bring a reinforcing shot of cold air, which is going to be important because that's going to move our rain, snow, and our ice rain line further south. Again, it's going to be a process here where this cold air slowly but surely kind of oozes south through the next 7 to 10 days. And that's going to bring that storm track further south with it. So that's kind of the first storm. And then comes the second storm, another piece of energy. This is by about Saturday or so. You can see, again, another kind of trough here embedded. We've got some lift here in the atmosphere. Here's the trough axis. That's creating all this lift out ahead of it. And that, too, going to bring some active weather. And then we'll get to Storm 3, which will get its own segment in today's video. All right, so let's take a look at some models. Let's time it out for you. We'll start with our GFS American model, then we'll go to the European model, then we'll talk ice and snow totals for the first storm, then we'll talk probabilities for the second storm, then we'll dive into that longer range pattern and what is potentially going to be a pretty big time third storm. So stay tuned for that one. I think that one could be very interesting for a lot of folks. All right, here we go. This is starting Wednesday morning. Both models we will start here on Wednesday morning and kind of give you the latest here. I'm even going to roll up my sleeves and starting to get kind of serious here. So here we go. We've got some precipitation beginning to overlap with that cold air. And check it out. This is by Wednesday evening. You'll notice the atmosphere starting to get pretty juiced up here and running into some of that cold air. Notice high pressure up into the northeast. This is actually creating a little bit of cold air damming, and we could get some wintry precipitation as far south as DC, Baltimore, into the DMV, maybe even the Delmarva here, seeing some of those wintry colors. I think this is an all-rain event for Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe even, or probably even southern Indiana, Illinois, St. Louis. Again, that warm air is going to be moving pretty far north. So this first storm is going to be, more of a further north event outside of some cold air damming here that is helping to lead to some icy concerns there. Like I said, on the backside of the Appalachia chain. Now, we'll keep on going. This is overnight Wednesday into Thursday. This is when the storm really takes shape. A big swath of freezing rain and sleet, including potentially the Chicago area, up into Gary, Indiana, southern Michigan. We've got all snow up into Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the UP. And you can kind of see that dividing line. Snow to the north, ice in the middle, rain to the south, which is the normal setup here, but will be very pronounced with a storm system like this. And then check this out, Thursday morning, we've got a travel nightmare through Pennsylvania, into northern New Jersey, New York City potentially, into New York State in general. Those kind of pink and purple colors, that's ice and sleet. The blue is snow. I think it's going to be one of those events where you start as snow. We'll pick a city like Scranton, for example. You're going to start as snow Thursday, then you're going to likely change to some ice and then some rain, but we've still got a pretty good cold air supply up into the interior Northeast. So areas like Boston, up through New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York, Maine. This could be an all snow event. This gets us to Thursday afternoon. And by Thursday evening, the storm kind of pulls on out of here, and then we get a little bit of a lull. So obviously an impactful storm number 1 on the GFS. We'll keep on going. Here comes storm number 2. We're going to spend a little less time on this one just because it's kind of a little bit further out there, but we'll give you the general idea. Here we go. Saturday morning, it looks almost identical to the first storm, doesn't it? It looks like I'm showing you the exact same thing. Well, yeah, it kind of is. And then we move it ahead, and yeah, this is basically like I just took the first storm and threw it right back, and it's the exact same thing. Shows the same places, basically getting the same problems. Wintry weather into Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, potentially New York City, up through New York State, through the Hudson River Valley, and then into the interior Northeast. And this one, again, a nice snowstorm for areas like Boston, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, and then clears on out of here by around next Sunday into Monday. So I'll go ahead and draw a couple areas here for you. This first area I'm going to draw, this is where I'm most concerned about icing potential, kind of right into this pink swath. This area in blue I'm going to draw, this is where I think you have the best chance to get significant snow out of this event. Up into here, and then kind of this area between I left out. It's kind of, that battleground zone between ice and snow and rain and a little bit of everything. So this is the first two storms. I think they're going to be pretty similar. Now the second storm, I think, has a higher chance of bigger snow in the Northeast, and I'll show you why in a moment. But this is kind of the area we're watching. That pink, the highest ice threat, that blue, the highest snowfall threat for just the first two storms. I know I keep mentioning storm number 3. It's going to be a different beast, I think, with kind of a different track by the time we get to that 7 to 10 day time frame. And again, we'll get there in one moment. All right, let's talk about the European model now. Obviously, one of the fan favorites, if you will, normally does a pretty good job. And we'll kind of just go ahead and show you what's going to happen. So this is Wednesday afternoon. Again, this is just the model run, not the exact forecast, but pretty similar to the GFS. We've got that ice in kind of the same areas, the snow in the same areas, that pronounced cold air damming creating some problems as far south as the Shenandoah Valley, up into northern Virginia, just into the DMV area as a whole there. And then all snow up into portions of Wisconsin, Michigan. Now, the European a little bit further north with the ice line back through Chicago, Michigan, into, let me pick a color you can see, into portions of Ohio, Indiana, that area a little bit further north on the European, but pretty similar for the northern mid-Atlantic and the Northeast on this run. And you keep it going ahead, and same idea. Now, another thing that with the European being a little bit further north is it goes from more of a all snow event on the GFS to kind of a snowy, rainy, icy mix for areas like Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island, changes to all rain by the end of it, and the storm gets out of here. So I'd say the first storm a little less impactful on the European compared to the GFS. Then we get that little bit of a break. Then comes storm number 2. Here we go. This is Saturday morning and afternoon, and kind of works through the same areas. And again, it's kind of a carbon copy of the first storm, much like the GFS showed, including being a little bit further north on the European on both storm systems. So kind of average it all out, and well, what do we think is going to happen? Well, let me show you this first. This is the ice forecast from our models. This is the GFS just for storm number 1. This is not showing storm number 2, just storm number 1, and you kind of get the idea. The areas here, that's the GFS, that's the European. GFS, European. So pretty similar, and in fact, I'll give the GFS some credit. I'd say the European has come back south a little bit compared to where it was with the ice signal. So maybe the GFS finally wins a battle here. But either way, a big swath of icy concerns from the mountains of Virginia into the DMV, up through Pennsylvania. I think will be a big state for ice into southern Michigan, southern Wisconsin, maybe even portions of Iowa getting in on some of the ice here. Could be a concern. And as far as totals, I think most folks it's going to be 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, but isolated spots could get 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, and that would be more of the ice storm territory for the first one. And then we start talking about snowfall totals, and obviously it's going to be, that snow shield is going to be further north than what the ice shield is going to be. So a couple pronounced areas to note here. The UP of Michigan, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. This is the European model, by the way. And then into the interior Northeast, specifically Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But if the GFS is more correct, and I'll go ahead and switch it to the GFS now so you can kind of see it. The GFS would be a bigger storm for areas further south in the Northeast, areas like Boston, back down to Connecticut, northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, Scranton, areas like that. You'd get a higher chance of snow with the first storm than what the European shows, and that's kind of what it looks like. Now, let's look at the second storm. We're going to switch from totals to probabilities. Again, today's Monday. The second storm isn't really till about Saturday, so I've got plenty of time to get down to the nitty-gritty with the totals. Let's just talk about the chances of you seeing snow with that one. Or in this case, we'll start with freezing rain, and then we'll go to snow. So here's the ice forecast from the European ensembles. A big area of ice potential, really for a lot of the same places with the first one. Specifically, Pennsylvania is a state I'm watching for big ice potential there this weekend, right before the Super Bowl. And obviously a lot of Eagles fans in Pennsylvania. So, if you're traveling back and forth a lot I can get through this. If you're traveling back and forth a lot to see family or something for the game, be careful, take it easy there during the Saturday and Sunday time frame. And then that freezing rain signal kind of even gets on up a little bit further into the Northeast. But really, Pennsylvania is the sweet spot here, already running about an 80% chance of what I would consider a pretty significant icing event. And then you get to snowfall chances. And here's the good news for the second storm. I know I showed you the models, and they really didn't look that different. So I'm going to have to refresh the page here. From the first storm and the second storm, they looked about the same on track. Well, I think the second storm, here's the first one. I think the second storm is going to be a bit further south in the Northeast. So notice the signal here is a lot better for Boston, into Connecticut, Rhode Island, maybe New York City, northern New Jersey. It's a nice little area there that the models are kind of bullseyeing for that potential of big winter weather in the snowfall department. So we'll see how it trends, but I definitely think the rain snow line on the second storm will be a little bit further south than the first one. And that would put places again like Boston, Hartford, Bridgeport, into Providence more in play for bigger snow. Now, still going to be tough in Philly. I think it's going to be more of an icing event for both storms in Philadelphia, at least with these two. Like I said, we'll get to the third storm next. But either way, it looks like an active weekend in the Northeast. And now that finally segues us into what's after this week and could be coming on down the pipeline. Now, nothing set in stone, nothing guaranteed, but I definitely have my eyes on that snow potential and ice potential for areas much further south by the time we get on into about 10 days or so from now. And this would include potentially the Carolinas, Tennessee, Virginia, and other portions of the South that we'll talk about. So here's the setup. Really, the pattern's not going to change. It's just going to shift south a little bit. So this is by next Monday. Notice this on all this blue. This is that cold I was telling you about. That new cold line kind of getting a little bit further south. Plus, I'm going to include right into here. This is a classic cold air damming potential. So basically, it's what's happening in the DMV area with the first two storms. I told you, you might be rain in central Ohio, and then you're seeing ice in areas like Baltimore and Washington, and you're thinking, well, how's that happening? We're at the same latitude. Shouldn't we both be getting the cold air? Well, again, what's happening is you're getting this injuncture of cold air down the backside of the Appalachia chain. That cold air is dense. It doesn't go up and over the mountains, so it just keeps on flowing down. And areas as far south as the upstate of South Carolina, northeast Georgia, western North Carolina are the benefits, or get the benefits of that if you're a winter weather fan, with this pattern. And kind of, it really doesn't change. In fact, arguably the pattern gets even better by the middle of the month. Look what happens by about the 15th, 16th. All that cold air then really gets into the east and kind of beats down that southeast ridge, which is basically this area of orange that you're seeing. All that cold air kind of finally pushes south and moves the ridge out of the way. Now, that's what the pattern looks like, but what does that mean for us? Well, we've got the cold air. The question is, do we have an active storm track? And I think we will. This is the European projection for this coming Monday evening. This would be February 11th. So this is Monday, February 11th. And you can kind of see what's happening is, again, this is when that cold air is moving further south. At the same time, we've got a piece of energy working into the desert southwest. And generally speaking, not all the time, but most of the time, where these pieces of energy enter, they like to exit. So if it enters here, it may try to exit, out near the Carolinas or Virginia across the lower 48. And obviously, storm track that far south with cold air, that's a pretty good recipe for some sort of significant winter weather. And the GFS shows the same thing. In fact, the GFS is even further south with this storm system. So definitely looking promising. Now, let's go ahead and time it out for you. Again, we've got the storm entering here by near California by next Monday into Tuesday, and then just kind of crosses the country. Again, goes a little bit further north at the end, so it's not always as simple as it exits where it enters, but in this case, kind of moves up and over the mid-Atlantic, and then potentially up the northeast coastline in a nor'easter-like fashion. We'll see. Again, it's about 10 days away, but climatology suggests that could be a very real possibility. All right, so what I'm going to show you now, this is the European AI model. This is kind of a new model on the block, the new kid on the block, if you will, and it has done very well so far this winter, kind of sniffing out these winter storms in the long range. So I want to show it to you. Let me move my head out of the way so you can actually see it. That would help. And just to explain the map to you a little bit, this is not going to be as simple as green is rain and, nothing is nothing. So this model is only showing precipitation in general. So it's only showing where stuff is falling from the sky. That could be rain, sleet, snow, freezing rain. That could be any of those. But a good way to tell is this. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but you see kind of this blue line here. This is our 540 line. And generally speaking, that's the rain snow line. So not entirely in this case. And I'll show you why. But generally speaking, And that means areas to the south would be rain and areas to the north would be snow. Well, it's a little different in this case. You see, this is the shield of precipitation. Look at temperatures at the exact same time frame and look at what's happening. That cold air damming I was telling you about, we've got freezing temperatures all the way down near Charlotte, Columbia, Greenville, Spartanburg, Athens, near the Atlanta area, the mountains of North Carolina, back through Raleigh, up through basically the entire state of Virginia. This is that cold air damming signal I was telling you about. And we'll go back to the precipitation map. And there's stuff falling from the sky. So this would be a winter storm by about, 9 or so days. Excuse me, 9 or so days from now. Sorry, I've got some congestion going on here. 9 or so days from now, this would be a winter storm in portions of the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast. So we'll keep on moving it ahead. And there it goes. It tries moving up the coast, and this would be, again, an all-snow event, it looks like, for Philadelphia, New York City, a lot more of these coastal areas that might be more ice or rain with the first two storms here. You can kind of see that setting up shop and then pulling on out of here by about 10 or 11 days. I'll show you the temperatures again throughout the time frame. Here we go. We've got that freezing signal down through the upstate into North Carolina, Virginia, the mid-Atlantic, and it holds on with that cold air damming kind of being locked into place. And this would be really almost an all-winter weather event through the entirety of the storm system for areas quite far south. Now, that's one model. Let me also show you some global models. And again, this is out there, so this is not a forecast. This is just taking a look at some data and giving you an idea of what could happen. Here comes the European, shows a big snowstorm starting back into Oklahoma, into Arkansas, Missouri, gets into the Tennessee Valley, and then looks very similar to its AI counterpart, heavy winter storm event into North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, through the Ohio Valley, and then tries to ride on up the coast, and we've got a nor'easter through the Northeast, and then kind of gets on out of here and even gets a reinforcing shot of some active weather behind it. That's one model. What about the GFS model? Well, it's similar in the same range. We've got that storm developing. We've got snow through the Ohio Valley, rain to the south, and just kind of that train of precipitation continues, and it's a little bit further north, but becomes a big nor'easter and a big northeast winter storm, and then kind of leaves out the Carolinas, which the European and European AI are a little bit more excited about. That's also a little bit sooner in time. That's more of a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we get later on into time, and it's another storm system right after 10 days. So you get the idea. It looks very active for sure. Now, let's take a look at the ensembles, the probabilities of this happening, starting with the European. Here's the time frame, and here comes that big signal for snow. Check it out, from Oklahoma and Kansas all the way back into Virginia, West Virginia, the Western Carolinas, the Charlotte area, Raleigh. It's a good signal for some snow, and then even gets on up into the Northeast. So that's what you want to see at this range. Again, I've said it 1,000 times. We'll say it again. We're about 10 days away. So we've got plenty of time to figure it out here. GFS kind of shows the same thing, same signal here from the plains all the way into the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast for that potential snow in that time frame. Final thing I'll show you today is temperatures, and this video has gone a little bit longer than I expected it to, but that's okay. We've got spring fever this week, so all the red and the orange in the south, that's that spring fever I was telling you about. And it's going to last for a while. Now, up north, we've got that cold air and snow. We've been tracking the Wednesday storm into Thursday, Friday. But down south, folks, it's a beautiful week ahead. Stays that way through this coming weekend. Then by next week, here comes that cold air. It gets much further south, and that can line up with that storm track. And we could be dealing with much more winter-like conditions nationwide by about the 10th through the 15th. And this goes all the way out into the middle of the month near the 17th, 18th. And it's still cold on the ensemble. So that's what we're seeing right now. We'll see how it plays out. I'm pretty confident we're going to get at least 3 major winter storms here. We've got the Wednesday storm, the weekend storm, and then early next week. That's the big one I'm watching that I think could be kind of the appetizer out of all the courses here. And then after that, the models kept on showing the storm trend continuing through the middle of February. So that's all I got for you folks. Again, I apologize. I kind of started choking up on myself there at the end. I guess I need to, go figure that out. But with that said, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, stay warm. I'll see you all next time.